Hello, everybody. My name is Pharmacist Michael, and today I am going to interview Madeline, who has
Hi.
a special passion for keeping our world clean of trash. And you guys may not know this. I guess it depends on where you live, but there are places where there's a lot of litter. And Madeline actually has a group that goes out and cleans up parts of Texas. So, my first question for you, Madeline, is how did you get started on this journey? And why do you do it?
Thank you, Michael. First, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited. So really, one, I have to bring it back to my parents. My dad is a hardcore environmentalist. I can only aspire to be like him. He hasn't owned a car for 20 years. He hasn't eaten meat for 20 years. He's just, very, very, very firm in his beliefs. He lives in a shack behind someone's house because it leaves a smaller footprint. So even though he wasn't like that when I was growing up, it was very common for us to just bring a bag when we went walking. And the goal was just to pick up litter along the way. So we would do like light litter pickups wherever we went. Earth Day was always a day where we would go plant trees or something fun. So I was raised with the principles of responsible stewardship and that kind of always being in the back of my mind. I went 8 years of my adult life without a car myself. I didn't even own a car until I moved to Tennessee. When I moved in Utah, I didn't have a car. All throughout the country. But when I moved to Tennessee and Texas, it became unsafe not to have one. So unfortunately, at that point, I did have to drive a car. But so litter is just something I've always been aware of, but only recently set the goal of picking up 1 million pieces of garbage.
So, your goal is to pick up 1 million pieces of garbage.
Yes.
And you count these one piece at a time?
Yes. So if I'm doing my personal cleanup, if I'm doing just myself walking around, I count every single piece as I go. If I'm organizing a group cleanup, so if I've organized a group cleanup, then I've estimated how many pieces of litter is in one bag, and then we kind of estimate. But if I go to someone else's cleanup, like Michael, if you invited me to your cleanup, I wouldn't count what your group cleaned up. That wouldn't be fair because I'm more participating in what you're doing. So I'd still count my own individual pieces, but those would all be yours.
So, this question's coming. How many pieces have you picked up so far?
Okay, so I checked this morning. It was, give me just 1 second. The number is 122,484.
So, you're an eighth of the way there, about?
Yes. I'll probably finish when I'm about 50. It's not a fast goal. It's a
No,
very
no, no,
long-term
no. That's
goal.
amazing. And what do you do with all this trash? You just take it to a landfill?
Yes, I would love to say that I recycle every piece of it, but a lot of what we do is focusing on aquatic cleanups, and aquatic trash you can't recycle. It's already been too degraded. So the majority, if it's my own personal cleanup, I do recycle. Like if I'm going around my neighborhood, I'll throw it in the recycling bin, but the vast majority just goes to a landfill where it's safely away from wildlife and water sources.
Okay, so why is this important to what you're doing?
So I've always been someone extremely goal oriented. I've always been passionate about, getting ahead. And I had set a list of life goals for myself. And I don't want to go too deeply into that because it kind of sounds like clout. But I had all the typical goals somebody wants to reach, like, oh, I want to go abroad. I lived in Chile for 2 years, serving a mission for my church, and that was wonderful. Did a study abroad in Kenya, helping build a library at a girls' school. I wrote a book. I got my MBA, and I have a job that I enjoy, and I have these three beautiful children, and it got to a point where it's like, okay, what next? I've I've completed everything I wanted. What do I do next? And it was after the birth of my third beautiful daughter. I actually got really depressed because there wasn't a lot to look forward to. I guess there was probably a little bit of like postpartum hormones going on as well, and so I just thought, okay, Madeline, you've accomplished what you've wanted. Life isn't over though. What could you wake up for in the morning? And I know that sounds kind of depressing, but it was depressing. It was a very depressing time. And I thought, okay, what's one thing that if I accomplish before I die, I could really be proud of, that I could measure and work towards, because I knew I didn't want to focus on career, because my career is good. That's not the main focus point. I don't want to always be focused on making more, more, more. We're more into like, hey, let's make do with the money we have, live our lifestyle accordingly. So I knew that wasn't what I wanted to focus on, of like, hey, let's just make more money. That's not how I wanted to measure. That's not how I want to measure my day. And so through a lot of prayer and the book, have you ever read the book Essentialism?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Okay, it's a phenomenal book, but it talks about like kind of whittling down your life purpose to a very clear life statement, like one statement, a goal you can get behind. And as I was reading that book and like bringing it to God, the goal came to me of 1 million pieces of garbage. And I was like, if I pick up 1 million pieces of garbage before I die, I feel like I would be very proud with what I left behind. I'd be very proud with the impact I had on this world. And it really, again, I'm not trying to be over dramatic. It kind of changed my life, because every day in motherhood, especially, all the days kind of blend together. You read books, you get them to school, you take kids to sports, and it's wonderful and it's a great routine, but all the days become one day, just because like you just get going on that momentum. But having the goal of 1 million pieces of garbage, it's like, okay, I picked up 50 pieces of garbage while at my son's baseball game. I picked up 120 pieces of garbage while playing with my kids at the playground. So it's not a goal that took away from my life. It didn't take away from my job, with my time with my family, with my time with my husband. It just allowed me to be doing good while living my everyday life.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do the kids ever help you pick the trash up?
All the time. Yes.
Really?
Especially my youngest daughter. She's 2 years old. It's almost a problem. It's almost a problem, because we're like, no, you can't pick up everything you see.
Right.
But it's funny because she'll always pick it up. And if we're on a bike ride and she's garbage, she'll be like, Mommy, stop, garbage. So I have to like pull over my bike. She's actually probably more dedicated than I am.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So this group, you guys, White Rock Lake, is that what it's called?
Yes, White Rock Lake. So we clean up White Rock Lake every single Monday. And we plan on hitting the entire lake, like cleaning up the entire
So do you
lake.
think you're ever going to make it to, because Jenny May says it looks like after you've done it, it looks like when you go back, it hasn't changed. So
it does. Like, I wish, and Michael, you should come visit us, and you can walk the shorelines that we've done versus what we haven't done. There's a pretty striking difference.
Okay.
But Jenny May is 100% correct. All of our efforts will be washed away if we're not also pursuing long-term solutions.
Right.
Long-term solutions. Obviously, the biggest solution would be people stop using plastic bag bans, but that's not really going to happen in Texas. They actually had a plastic bag ban. Plastic bag lobbyists came and said, this is illegal. You can't ban our plastic bags. So,
well, they've done it in Oregon pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing.
And they did it.
The solution to this problem is people throwing their trash in the garbage can.
Yes.
And not just, I can understand if you've got a little baby and you're trying to put something in your car and in a bag, it's really windy and a bag flies away and you can't. That's mm-hmm. one thing, but just leaving stuff for somebody else to pick up mm-hmm. is crazy to me. I mean, it's like, why would you not take the extra? It's kind of like leaving your grocery cart in the middle of the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Is it really that hard to push it back to the place where it goes?
And some days it is. Some days, like the occasional circumstance.
Right. If you have a little teeny kid,
yeah,
that's different. But people just throw stuff all over. And I think it depends on where you live too, because, since I've talked to Jenny May and since I've watched your videos on TikTok, I've looked around here. I don't see hardly any trash in Oregon, mm-hmm. at least not where I'm at. Now, if you go down to the city, of course, you're going to see it. But I'm at the beach and there's virtually zero. I mean, and I think part of it is culture. I'm sure there is some government regulation somewhere. But I mean, I even drove through. It's funny how when you become aware of this, you start looking mm-hmm. for it, which is what I've started doing. And, mm-hmm. I even went to the Walmart parking lot here. I didn't see any. Didn't see it.
I can't even imagine. I can't. That's awesome.
So how much trash do you pick up in a month with your group and how many people are in the group? I know it's every Monday.
Mm-hmm. So it really depends. We've been blessed. Before it was just Jetty May and I.
Right.
Jetty May commented on one of my videos and she was like, people are so dirty. This is terrible. And I was like, well, let's do a cleanup together. So we started doing cleanups. So we started doing cleanups together and we couldn't get anyone to come.
Right.
Both her and I are kind of transplants to Texas. Neither of us are native Texans. We didn't have a large social support group or network. And we got invited to a trashy birthday party. So a wonderful woman named Van, every year for her birthday, she actually has a litter cleanup instead of a birthday party, and everyone comes, they bring food, they pick up a ton of garbage. Wow. And it was in that moment that we were able to tap into a social structure, a social group that already was passionate about picking up litter. We connected with a gentleman named Dallas for Change. His name's, I don't know if he actually likes his name being said. So an organization called Dallas for Change. And we kind of tapped into his network of the large community he already has. So we have anywhere between 5 to 15 people, and we're picking up per cleanup around 400 pounds. So we're 4 times 1,200, 1,600 pounds. We're picking up about 1,600 pounds of garbage every month out of White Rock Lake.
It just amazes me. And how long do you think the garbage has been there?
Some of it... years. Honestly, I'm going to say years. And we'd like to get, have you ever seen trash boons? Have you ever seen those little trash boons that they have installed in different rivers?
No.
So I would like to see trash boons installed around the lake. They already have them. They're just not very well maintained. And so they don't catch all the litter and there aren't enough of them. So I have made a public records request where I'm trying to track all the water sources that come into the lake, all the street runoff and every aspect of it. So we are looking into long-term solutions because picking up litter is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. It's good and you need the Band-Aid, but it's not a long-term solution. So in conjunction with litter picking, we're also trying to see like, okay, how can we prevent it from ever getting in the water? Because we're the only group right now who gets in the water. Besides, there is For the Love of the Lake, they occasionally do a kayak cleanup, but on a regular basis, we're the only group that will clean up the shoreline, like within the water.
So is White Rock Lake, is there a park there too?
Yes. It's gorgeous. Again, Michael, you have to come to Texas.
Yeah. Well, I used to live there, but I haven't been there in a long time. I've never been to Dallas.
Texas did you live?
I lived in Beaumont for 2 years right out of college.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So White Rock Lake is a gorgeous park. It's got an incredible bike trail that goes around the entire lake. I think it's around 11 miles. Don't quote me on that. And then it's just this green space, this mecca of green space in kind of in the heart of Dallas. It's very beautiful.
Okay, so my next question, why is there so much trash? Is it all people? Just lazy people?
No, so that's a good question. So Dallas for Change would argue people don't litter, corporations litter. Oh. Like who's responsible for this garbage? Is it Coca-Cola for creating a product that is so disposable? They're one of the number one top plastic polluters. Is it Walmart for their plastic bags? Or is it the individual who throws it in the wrong place? Because we do know there are alternative solutions to single-use plastics. Walmart doesn't have to be legally required. Sorry, I'm answering your question, Michael. I promise. No, okay. I'm just kind of kidding.
No, this is good. This is good.
Yeah. And so there's so many people who could accept responsibility, including the individual. So a lot of conservationists or environmentalists will say it's 100% the corporations. Like they are responsible. The corporations will tell you, no, it's 100% the consumers. It's their fault because we create the product, but we're not the ones throwing it on the street. And I personally believe it's in the middle. Corporations need to start investing in things like biodegradable plastics because I don't actually think we're ever going to change human behavior. Right. Unfortunately, human behavior, there are phenomenal people in the world, but it also has a tendency that you'll always have the outliers who kind of make it dirty for the rest of the world. And so not only do we need individuals who are willing to pick up litter and who are stop willing to litter, but we need corporations who are like, we assume people are going to litter. How can we make sure our product doesn't end up in the wrong place? Oregon has a great buyback program. You bring in a can and they give you 5 cents, right?
10 cents.
Yes. Yeah. And that's actually been proven to cut down litter by 15% in a community. And because, people, there's an incentive. As a scrap collector, we have people going out, picking up litter for monetary reasons. And so I love seeing initiatives like that, because it's proven to be effective time and time again. When you pay people for garbage, you're going to have more people picking up garbage, and you're not going to be throwing these things in the landfill because you're throwing away cash. And so the biggest reason why litter is such a huge problem in our waterways in Dallas, though, is because individuals are in my opinion, mind you, I am not an expert. I'm slowly becoming an expert, but it's a process, it's a journey. So if someone ever quotes me someday on this interview, realize this is from my point of knowledge right now. And I will continue to learn more and have further points of knowledge. The biggest thing is Dallas has a very interesting street design. We have our storm drains, and have you ever seen the movie It?
Yes.
And you know how like the clown Pennywise is hiding underneath the storm drain,
Yeah.
and it's so large that he can pull a small child?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are Dallas storm drains. Those are how large our storm drains are. It's so wide, it doesn't catch anything. So everything just flows directly into our waterways. It goes into our streams. It goes into our rivers. So anytime anyone throws anything on a road, it's going to end up in a lake. It's going to end up in a stream, because our waterways, unfortunately, are additional landfills to clean up our streets. Every time it rains, our streets become pristinely clean again, but it's because we're making the garbage out of sight, out of mind.
Wow. And it's funny when you mentioned the bottle bill. That was Tom McCall, and I still remember his name. I think Oregon was the very first state to do that. And some people actually do nothing but clean up cans.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make enough to at least eat by doing that. You might not be able to make enough to live, but you can, 10 cents a can. If you think about that, some of these people, if they're in the city, they can pick up a lot of cans in a day. And you're right. I wonder why we couldn't. It seems like it would make sense to have some sort of a trash. We'll pay you a certain amount per pound.
Mm-hmm.
More people would definitely come visit you if they were getting paid, right?
Yes, definitely. I would agree with that. So I love that system. And then you also have school children who pick up garbage for, extra lunch money.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, all I need to do is go pick up cans. I know I have a litter picking friend in the Netherlands, and that's what he mentions is like it incentivizes youth because sometimes that's the only extra money they can gather.
Right. And if you're a little kid, it doesn't cost that much for lunch, right? A couple bucks maybe?
Yeah.
20
and
cans?
It's whenever I see scrap metal collectors around here, or people, that you see kind of, they use the dredges, like they clean up the garbage for money, or in other places, I just always want to cheer them on because they're kind of a looked down upon group, but they're making the world a better place.
Exactly.
And they're fantastic, and they deserve all the praise of it. So
what's going to happen if nobody does what you do and they don't care and they just leave the lake the way it is?
I mean, eventually the wildlife are all going to die. White Rock Lake is home to over 200 animal species. It has an incredible selection of reptiles and birds. In fact, if you Google White Rock Lake, all you're going to see are these fantastic, phenomenal pictures of the wildlife, because it's in this huge city. It's a place where they can go and be safe, but the water is already back when it was first started. So this isn't a natural lake. This was a man-made lake, and it was meant to be for drinking water. But now the water is so polluted, you can't swim in it. You're not allowed to swim in it in any way, shape, or form. It's very dangerous. It has high fecal matter in it, and so they do testing, and it's a contaminated water source. It's no longer used for drinking water. We find animals that have been entrapped in plastic. We've found snakes wrapped up in netting. We've found fish that have been tangled up. And so eventually we will kill the very resource we're trying to protect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
But we're doing something about it. Like, it's sad, but it's a problem we can fix. There are solutions. There are solutions we can do today. It's just getting the right people on board. And I genuinely think we can do it. Especially, I'm working on a micro level. I'm just focusing on White Rock Lake. But if we can save White Rock Lake, what else can we accomplish?
How big is White Rock Lake?
The lake covers 1,200 acres.
1,200 acres?
Yes.
Wow, you've got a big
It's a huge
job.
lake.
You've
We
got
do.
to.
It will take us a while. And again, unless we do the long term solutions, all of our work will be washed away within 2 years. But we'll also try the long term
But
solutions.
you are doing the long term solutions. I know Jetty May said she's already been in front of City Hall and
Mm-hmm.
you're already trying to make some changes.
Mm-hmm. But
How is that
how's
going?
terribly, terribly so far, but we've just begun. I mean, Jetty May and I are so new. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easy to say we've tried so hard, but we're just starting. What the next step is data collection. Actually starting to collect all the data. As I said, getting the information of where is all this garbage coming from. And if we can get down the data of where it's coming from, potential culprits, like, hey, we can track that 80% of this garbage from this area is coming from this certain store, potentially we can start hopefully getting them on board. And so far we haven't had a lot of success, but the relationship building is happening more and more. I have a really large cleanup next Wednesday with Southwest Airlines, and we're expecting to have over 200 volunteers to go clean up another lake. And so it's not going well, but we're making, like, that's a win. That's a win. And if we can just focus on our wins, they're going to keep adding up. You can't save it in one go. You have to keep going. And the fact we were able to speak in front of City Hall, that's fantastic. And we slowly have, I had one newspaper reach out to me, and you're like, okay, that's not enough coverage, but maybe there will be more. We just can't give up yet.
No, I don't think you should give up at all because
Yeah,
you're the only one doing anything about this, and
yeah,
somebody needs to step up.
yeah. And we will. And it's very daunting, as you said. 1,200 acres is huge, and neither Jetty, May, and I actually live in that community. Neither of us actually live near White Rock Lake. So you would
Right.
hope that the community members also do care. There are nonprofits dedicated to that area. So if we can work in tandem, I think we can figure something out.
So if there's somebody watching this right now or listening to it on the podcast, what can they do to help you?
If you can come to our cleanups, please do. We meet every Monday, White Rock Lake. Sometimes we do it around different areas of Dallas, but right now we've just been focusing on the lake, hoping to cover all 1,200 acres of, all the shoreline. But if you're at home and you're thinking, I've got too much going on, I've got work, I've got kids, I have my cat who needs my attention, I don't know. Just go outside and make it a goal to pick up 3 pieces of garbage a day. Nothing huge, nothing that you can shout from the rooftops, but if every single person picked up 3 pieces of litter a day, we wouldn't even have a litter problem, because if a lot do a little, that's where big change happens.
So how would they find you at White Rock Lake if it's 1,200 acres? I mean, how are they going to get a hold of you to know where you're at that Monday?
Yes, so you're more than welcome to come follow me on any of my social media platforms: TikTok, the Trashy Texan; YouTube, the Trashy Texan. I am the Trashy Texan. That's where you'll be able to find me. I post all of our cleanups about a week in advance, and you're more than welcome to come, even if you can't help pick up litter. I had a friend in from Boston, and she had a 2-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. So the whole time I think she picked up about 5 pieces, and the rest of the time she spent breastfeeding. And I have permission. No, I have permission to share that story. I really do. I asked her in advance. She was okay with that, or else I wouldn't share it. But even her moral support of being there, every time someone brings their kids, I call it a long-term investment, because when I bring my kids, I pick up almost no litter. But the idea is they see people picking up litter,
Yes.
and maybe someday that will become the solution. They will be the solution.
Okay, so the Trashy Texan.
Yes, the Trashy Texan.
Is there anything else do you have any questions for me, or is there anything else that you would like to tell these people before we wrap this up?
Let's see. Michael, what do you enjoy doing? Like, what are you passionate? So trash is my passion point. It's what I care about. What's your passion point?
My passion point is helping people, especially people with mental illness. That would be my number one. I like to help people become happier and healthier. So, I had a lot of anxiety when I was younger, especially when I was in pharmacy school. And I had some pretty severe panic attacks where I thought every day was going to be the last day of my life. And I
Mm-hmm.
slowly, throughout a several year period, learned coping skills, what not to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, working in a hospital for so long, I've seen so many people die or end up with horrible diseases just because they don't take care of themselves.
Mm.
So, this, it does, people probably wonder, well, why are you talking about trash? And the reason I'm talking about trash is because trash causes disease.
Yes.
A lot of, not only is the wildlife affected, but people are affected by it. So anytime we are creating bacterial habitats, which this does, our water has to be clean. One of the five pillars of health that I always talk about is drinking a lot of water. Well, if you're drinking water that's contaminated, it's kind of like eating food that's
Mm-hmm.
processed, right? So I just like to help people change their habits so they're happier.
I
And
think
and
it's
it's
easier to pick
not
up
that
trash.
hard.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard. I mean, if you think about it, if you get enough sleep and you eat whole foods and you exercise and you drink a lot of water and you take care of your brain and your spirituality, you'll be a whole lot happier. But so many people fall into the habits of driving through Taco Bell at night and then they get home and drink, 4 beers or 6 glasses of wine and they sit in front of their TV and they, just basically vegetate for the whole night and then they go to bed. And if you can do that once in a while and that's fine. But if you do that every single day, the alcohol is going to catch up to you. The lack of movement's going to catch up to you and the food's going to catch up to you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then people don't get enough sleep.
Mhm.
It's kind of a downward spiral. And then the anxiety gets worse. I mean, it's, people take on too much. They don't know how to set boundaries. Even at work, I talk about that. A lot of people have jobs. You're one of the lucky ones, and I'm one of the lucky ones. You actually like what you do, but
Yes.
there's most people can't stand their job.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to tell people is, it's not worth it. You're better off finding a job that you enjoy that pays you less because you're going to spend the money you make anyway on
No
stuff you
matter what.
probably don't need, right?
Yeah.
I kind of promote the same thing over and over again, hoping it will catch just a few people. And another thing that drives me nuts is, you have an event in your life, you have a breakup in a relationship, your dog dies, something happens, maybe you lose your parent or your grandparent. And so you become situationally depressed and you go to the
Yes.
doctor. And instead of talking to you about it or sending you to a group that has that, no, they don't do that. They give you an antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
So, the doctor spends 15 minutes with you, they give you an antidepressant, and then you spend the rest of your life on an antidepressant that you only needed, if at all, for maybe a month or two, right?
Yes.
So this happens all the time. And then we don't even know what type of problems that antidepressant might cause long term. But sometimes it turns into a downward spiral. Well, this one's not working anymore. Increase the dose or give me something else. Or they start having side effects from it. You know, things like that drive me bonkers.
Yeah.
And
And
I
so, oh, go ahead.
I learned, a lot. I shared an office for 4 years with people who made their living as therapists. So I learned music therapists, occupational therapists, art therapists, dance
Mhm.
therapists, all these people were in the same office as I was. So when I would say something like, God, this is the worst day I've ever had, they would jump on me just like that and say, wait a second, really? This is the worst day you've ever, thinking errors, just little things like
Yes.
that. And I started going into the rooms where they did their talks with the patients and reading the board so I could learn
Mhm.
some of this alternative ways of dealing with things.
Yes.
And then I started doing some of them, deep breathing techniques, the tapping method. A lot of people don't know what that is. If you don't know what it is, Google it.
I do
I
know.
mean,
You're fine. I
yeah,
used to be a life coach back in the day.
right. So
Yeah.
it's just these types of things that are available for free, especially now we have YouTube. You can learn
Yes.
almost anything for free.
Yes. Hearing your story, it reminded me of a time. I love that, of being like, this is the worst day, and then someone catching you and being like, Michael, think about this. I remember, so we also foster a lot of dogs. If you ever watch my channel, you'll see bikes, dogs, and trash. Um, those are the three things I love. And there was one time, I don't do anything medical related. So Michael, admittedly, some of your videos I don't watch because I don't enjoy medical related material.
Right.
Um, all my in-laws are doctors and nurses, and that's great, but I can't even stand the dinner conversations because they're gross. But there was a time when we were taking on a medical foster. So we had two puppies and a mom dog. And when they got to us, they were almost dead. And the rescue was like, hey, just go to Tractor Supply and get all of this medical supplies. And so I go to Tractor Supply. I have this list. I don't have pictures. And I'm just overwhelmed because I don't know how to find anything. And the woman comes and she comes and helps me. And I'm like, I spend like 2 hours in Tractor Supply trying to find the right thing. And I'm like, I'm just so dumb. I can't figure this out. And she's like, hey, don't say that about yourself.
Right.
And she's like, you are very smart. You've never done this before. You don't know what you're looking for. I'm sure you're really good at other things. And I almost started crying because I was so overwhelmed in that moment with everything going on. But like that moment of grace of like her checking my negative thinking of like, you are not, and just a stranger being willing to say that, like, it immediately changed my thinking. So since then I've had moments like that where I'm tempted to be like, oh, you're so dumb, and being like, whoa, you don't need to say that. Like, is it true? Just like reality checking it, like, okay, yes, I am dumb on blank, but I'm not dumb on A, B, and C.
Right.
So I like that they also kind of gently validated your emotions, but also redirected to a more accurate train of thought.
Well, and it's other things too. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
I'm never going to make it through the days. I'm never going to get this job. That's another one of my favorites. It's like, so you go into an interview and he's like, man, I'm never going to. That's not the way to go into an interview. The way to go into the interview is, I'm going to, if you see yourself in the new job, you're going to do much better at the interview.
Yeah.
And how do you know you're never going to get the job? You haven't even interviewed yet. So there's no way that you could possibly know that. And there's a book, I push this book all the time. It's called Feeling Good. It's written by a doctor. You can find it in my Beacons link. You can find it online, but basically what this book is this cognitive behavioral therapy that has been shown to be just as effective as antidepressants for anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. And I bought several copies of this book. I've sent this book to people. It was written by a psychiatrist, but that's what it's about. It's about thinking errors. And, if you do something simple, like every time you catch yourself doing it, if you write down on the left side, I'm never going to make it through today. And then on the right side, you write, I've made it through every other day. Why would I not make it through today?
Yes.
If you do that enough, pretty soon your mind will automatically do it for you and you won't be doing that anymore. So these are things that most people don't know, not because they're dumb, but because they've never been, they, like I said, they go to the doctor, they get a pill, and the pill's going to save everything. It's going to make you skinny. It's going to make you happy. It's going to take away, it's going to give you more energy. But it's not going to do any of those things. That's not what medications were meant to do. They're not meant to solve life's problems.
Have you ever taken diet pills?
No. And I never will.
They make you downright crazy. I've taken them a few times, only one time in my life, because I had a brother-in-law recommend them. And I read after I started feeling the impacts on my body, I actually read through the ingredients and I was like, oh, it has like 400 milligrams of caffeine. I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die if I keep taking this.
I do have diet supplements in my store. Mm-hmm. Sunshine Nutraceuticals, I have them, but, but you're right. I mean, most of it is caffeine. And if you sip green tea during the day, you really will get about the same effect.
Yeah.
But there's even worse diet pills than that. I mean, people are using anti-diabetics now. They're for a while they were using Dexedrine. Dexedrine is a strong amphetamine that speeds up your heart and increases your blood pressure. If you have any coronary problems at all, you could end up dead from
Yeah.
that. Is it worth it? And what does it
Yeah.
matter? I mean, that's the other thing that kills me is everybody's so worried about being skinny. If that's not the way God made you, it shouldn't matter. Why
Yeah.
is everybody so worried about looking a certain way?
That's definitely something. I grew up in a family like where I think I went on my first diet when I was in 4th grade. We were a dieting family. That was the culture. And when I married my husband, he's like, I am not comfortable with the dieting culture. He's like,
Good.
he's like, I love you, but I don't ever want our daughter to see you on a diet. He's like, I don't want her to like, he's like, I don't want our kids to grow up with what you did. And so when I married him was the last time I ever did a diet and we just eat healthy. We just eat healthy.
Yeah.
We just eat healthy and we're active. And it's interesting. And then sometimes when I'm like, oh, I want to look like J-Lo, he's like, keep in mind, J-Lo makes millions and millions of dollars every year to look great. He's like, if that's your profession, then great. But he's like, why? Again, obviously, like I still take care of myself. I still try to like be healthy, but the goal is health. The goal is like, hey, do I feel good? Can I play with my kids? If I can actively play with my kids, if I can hike a mountain, everything else will take care of itself. I don't have to worry. All I have to worry about is my lifestyle. Do I live a lifestyle that brings me happiness?
And J-Lo has people cooking for her. She has
Yes.
personal trainers that,
Yes.
so you can't compare yourself to her.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing what she's doing, like your husband said. You don't have enough hours in the day to be able to do what she does and eat like she eats. And you just can't do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that kills me is, people that are 50 want to look like people that are 20. And that doesn't work either. You can't do that because your body is different. It's changed. There's a few people that might be able to pull it off, but most of us cannot because your metabolism is now different.
Yes. And even like, I love my wrinkles. I don't know if you probably can't see them, but I've got, I've got wrinkles here. I've got wrinkles here and I love them, and I've got some gray hairs coming in here. And I just think they're so cute. It's like a badge of honor. Like every line is a badge of honor. These wrinkle lines are from smiling so much. Oh, darn it. You could tell I've smiled my whole life.
You smile a lot. You do.
Like, dang it. When I get older, my whole face is going to be just a giant wrinkle line. It's going to be adorable. I like aging. I think it's fun.
This has been wonderful. You've been awesome.
Thanks, Michael. It's been really fun to get to know you. I'd love to hear, like, I know you feature your son a lot in your videos. How many kids? If you have to hop off, you can also hop. But how many kids do you have? You don't always share a lot of personal stories on your channel.
So I have a stepdaughter who's now in medical school in Minnesota.
Wow.
And I have another daughter who is in college. She's almost done. She wants to be a theater teacher in high school. So she's very much into musical theater. She has been since she was a little kid.
Aww.
And then I have two smaller ones. I have Ashley, who's 13. I don't know if she knows what she wants to do. And then I have Joshua, who has achondroplasia. So he's a little person. And he's right now, his goal is to be an NFL football star.
Awesome.
So you will see him on my TikTok, pharmacist_Michael too. He's got one video that's got 9 million views. He's got another one.
I saw that his kick, which was like this phenomenal kick, and you're like, how did he do that?
It's actually the 9 million one is his first hit when he was playing baseball. Baseball's his best sport, but he loves football, and he's just started playing football, so we don't know, but he's pretty good at baseball. Mm-hmm. His strike zone is like this.
Yes.
And he can throw the ball pretty good. For being a little guy, he's fast too.
Yeah.
I mean, those little legs move. So
that's awesome.
He has 3 girls and a boy. He's basically changed our world. I mean, he's a lot of work. He's a lot of
Bo-
work, but
Boys are a lot of, we have two. My first daughter had me convinced I was a good parent. I'm like, oh, I'm a great parent, I know what I'm doing. And then we had my son, and I was like, oh no, we were just a girl mom, this is a boy. Like, boys are not, he just has so much energy, like, so
yes.
like, energy of my daughter, energy of my son. And it's so much like, he wants to wrestle, he wants to tackle, he wants, and we don't necessarily teach like gender rules. It's more like, hey, like, if my son wants his nails painted, he can paint his nails, we don't care. But it's so funny of how many of these things are just, he is so naturally wanting to fight, not in a negative way, but just like wanting competition all the time. And I'm like, and I grew up with mostly sisters, so I'm like, I am not used to this. And my husband has to keep reassuring me, like, this is normal. Like, he grew up with three brothers. He's like, it's
Yeah.
normal to want to wrestle all the time. It's normal to want to compete in everything. And I was like, whoa, it's just, he's adorable and I love him, but so much energy.
You should see how many pieces of trash he can pick up compared
Mm,
to Jetty May.
that, like a little trash off.
Yeah, say hey, we'll see how good you really are. We're gonna weigh your trash compared to hers at the end of today.
That would be so. I do have someone who sometimes jumps on my live if I'm doing a litter picking live, and he'll be like, "You have 5 minutes. I'll give you a rose for every piece of garbage you can get in the next 5 minutes." So I'll start like
Really?
picking. Yeah, and that is so fun. So he'll just pay me per piece of trash. Mind you, it's like a rose, so I end up making $1.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's still cool though.
It's always, I really enjoy that. So if you ever jump, it's a fun activity. And it speeds you up, kind of like you said, it like makes it a race. So I end up getting like
Yeah,
3 times as much garbage as I planned on.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Okay, well, time to start the day. It's super early
Yeah.
here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, have a good day.
6:17. So now I get to go be a pharmacy manager.
Okay.
But
Have a
thanks for
fun time
coming
being.
on, Madeline.
Thanks
If
for
you
having
guys,
me.
if anybody wants to help or have any questions for Madeline, the Trashy Texan, you can find her on YouTube. You can find her on TikTok and Instagram, right? Your name is the same
And
everywhere.
Instagram. And if you do still use Facebook, I'm even on Facebook.
Okay, so reach out to her. Um, questions, if you want to know how you can help. And again, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
I'm Pharmacist Michael. Be happy and be healthy.